some marquee games this weekend in the SEC. Let's get right into them, shall we? Starting with the game everyone's talking about. The LSU Tigers are taking on the Oregon Ducks in the Cowboy Classic. Given the troubles with the recent bar fight incident and the suspensions that resulted from it, how do you guys think these two highly ranked teams will perform this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, the biggest problem for LSU that completely changes the outcome of this game is losing Jordan Jefferson from the bar fight incident. But the thing about that is Jefferson really didn't play as perfectly as a lot of people remember last year. Keep in mind, the Tennessee game, that guy had no idea what was going on in Les Miles' offense. And not only that, but think about Oregon against Auburn in last year's championship game. They really surprised all of us who are biased towards the SEC and matched them step for step. So I think LaMichael James and Darren Thomas are really going to catch LSU off guard. I think Oregon's going to win the game.
Maybe not LSU fans per se, because people don't forget, but Les Miles was really high on Jefferson in the offseason. I think this is it's a bigger loss for them than I think what meets the eye. And that being said, though, they lost Stephen Ridley, but they returned Spencer Ware, a stud of a running back, 7.3 yards per carry last season. And regardless of the suspensions and that kind of stuff, it's still a matchup between two top 5 teams. I think it's going to be a very solid matchup.
All right. Well, the only other matchup of ranked teams this opening weekend will come in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, as number 5 Boise State meets number 19 Georgia, and they battle it out. Do you think Georgia is ready to be old Georgia again? And if not, will head coach Mark Richt still have a future with this program?
Well, Lewis, I was lucky enough to have a phone conversation with their leading quarterback, Aaron Murray, who is a stud in the SEC, and we all know this. He's really a team leader. So he said to me that what's going to be the difference this year is they really focused on their off-season game. And a lot of teams don't really look deep into the off-season. He said this off-season, they've pushed harder in the weight room. They're lifting more weights. They're more athletic. They're faster. And he said a key thing is they're mentally ready. And you know as well as I do, the game is mental as well as it is physical. And last but not least, he said that the old Georgia is going to be back and that they're going to shock people, and he refuses to lose. And you know when a quarterback refuses to lose, you know good and well that the rest of the team is on the same boat. And I really think number 19 Georgia is going to skyrocket to the top and really surprise people.
And you said it. Murray said anything short of an undefeated season this year will be a disappointment. So it'll be interesting to see how disappointed Georgia is at the end of the season.
Yeah, Rich needs either a 10-win season or they definitely need to bring on the SEC championship.
The defending national champions, the Auburn Tigers, will be opening up their season against Utah State on Saturday. Of course, the Tigers lost a host of their starters to the NFL last year, and without athletes such as Heisman Trophy Award winner Cam Newton and Lombardi Award winner Nick Fairley, are we going to see a team that even resembles what we saw last year?
I think this year Auburn is going to be considered their rebuilding year. I mean, no team wants to admit that, especially a team coming off a national championship. But every article online talks about how they have such a young team. And these young players come in and they haven't even played in a college game or the game speed. You know, practice is not the same as a game. So I really think Auburn this year is going to struggle. But this is going to be their time to rebuild that national championship chemistry and team that they had last year. So I don't know about Auburn this season.
Yes, but don't get their talent confused with being young. You have to remember last year Auburn and championship was not even in the same sentence. So therefore they have a title to defend. So this is going to encourage them to be more motivated and defend their championship title.
Very valid point. Speaking of titles, Titletown, the Alabama Crimson Tide opens up their 2011 campaign against Kent State. Even with a new starting quarterback and the loss of Julio Jones and Mark Ingram, they are still favored to win the SEC.
Yes, and I think that's a favorable and a fair prediction for this team. And I say that because naturally we want to say, oh, new quarterback, A.J. McCarron, or possibly Phillip Sims, as you were talking about before the show. But the thing about that, the last time Alabama had a new starting quarterback, Greg McElroy, first year at the helm, they win the national championship. And they're going to have 9 starters back on defense. So that's going to give the offense some room to sort of grow and develop in those first few games of the season. Courtney Upshaw, a huge middle linebacker who had 14.5 tackles for a loss last year. Bama's defense will carry them all the way to the title game.
And you've got to look, the schedule is very favorable for Alabama. They have an excellent shot being able to go into that LSU game 8-0. And I guess depending on how LSU recovers from the situation they're in right now. that game could decide the SEC West.
I really think this game, Alabama ranked number 2 playing an unranked team, is really a set game so that they can set the tone for the season, because all the fans don't know what to expect from Alabama. And I think with this game, you're going to see their plays, you're going to see how they run their offense, their defense, how their quarterback's throwing, which quarterback they go with. And I really think this is going to be more of a preview game versus a competitive game.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. The Florida Gators will be opening up their season with the Florida Atlantic after a disappointing 2010 season. Former coach Urban Meyer shocked everyone by stepping down as head coach, citing medical reasons. Replacing him will be former Texas defensive coordinator Will Muschamp. Do you guys think Muschamp can begin to turn things around with his first year as head coach?
Yes, and the thing that and Jonathan's going to laugh at me because he knows I was born and raised a Fighting Irish fan thanks to my parents. But the last time a guy named Charlie Weiss got his hands on a quarterback who was talented but not yet refined was a guy named Brady Quinn. And Quinn had 32 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in his first year under Weiss. Weiss at Florida is not going to have any distractions. He gets to be the offensive coordinator. He gets to call the plays and focus on the quarterback. And because of that, you're going to see a completely different John Brantley this year. There's no way they struggle with Florida Atlantic in that first game of the season. Completely
agree with you. And looking historically, first-year coaches at Florida have done phenomenal. You've got Steve Spurrier going 9-2, finishing number 12 in the nation his first season. Ron Zook, 8-5. Urban Meyer, 9-3. So, I mean, the bar has been set. First-year coaches doing very well at Florida. I think Muschamp set himself up into the same situation. And I do want to give a shout-out to Howard Schnellenberger. His final year at Florida Atlantic, started that program from scratch, won the national championship in Miami in '83. We bid adieu to him at the end of the season. So.
Absolutely. Well, Schnellenberger was certainly successful at Miami. Coming back from the break, we'll sit down with a man who knows Mississippi State football better than most. That is James Carskadden of The Reflector, and he will give us his opinion on the upcoming season for our Bulldogs.